Meanwhile, the US women registered their first win of the Olympics, thrashing New Zealand by 6-1. Ali Krieger joins us to reflect on that win. Caitlin Murray over on ESPN.com described this as a flattering scoreline for the US women.
Yes, it was definitely a great win and a good 3 points to move on, hopefully into the next rounds, guaranteed. I still do think that, some players are not playing with the same confidence and obviously team cohesion that we've seen before. That doesn't mean that they aren't going to find that in the next game or in the next rounds. But I do think there were, still some players, missing that normal confidence that we always see on the ball. But it's a great 3 points, and that's what they needed. And 6 goals to 1 was a good performance and yeah, good moving into the next game against Australia.
Who caught the eye for you?
Rose Lavelle and Lindsay Horan, I think, had they played really brilliantly. I think Lindsay scoring that goal in her 100th cap was an impact player today. And Rose, I felt like she was more in that central role, getting into the attack, beating lines. She was all over in midfield, even at one point in the sixth, defending. So I saw her a movement a lot today, and I thought she was much better and good impact into the attack to create those opportunities.
We saw a number of changes, of course, from this side, from the defeat against Sweden. Who has played their way into the starting 11 for that game against Australia midweek?
I think that was somewhat always planned. I do think that it's important to, give some of those mainstays a rest in order to be fully fit and ready to go versus Australia. But I think that we have such a strong team that I think any player is going to perform well against Australia, and he can count on any of them and trust them that they're going to do their job and do it well. I do think that Carly Lloyd might be in that number 9. We didn't see her in that position in the first game, but I do think Alex coming in and scoring another goal was great. But I do think Carly, can be a little bit more effective just coming 2 feet, receiving and laying off for other players like a Kristen Press and a Megan Rapinoe to get in behind and create the attack.
You must have spoken to a lot of the players after that defeat against Sweden. They weren't pulling any punches, were they? Certainly talking to the media, saying that they'd let themselves down. Obviously, you had Rapinoe coming out and talking about the fact, well, we just need to be able to pass the ball to each other. That's a start. I'm just wondering how the morale in the camp has been over the last few days, given that they've suffered a defeat, which, of course, is something they're not used to at all.
Absolutely. I think that, the players themselves, like I said before, are going to recognize that it's not good enough and they need to make the change because we are the ones out on the field. So they understand what needs to be done. They understand that they need to turn it on a little bit more mentally and have a little bit more urgency and tenacity in their game. And I think that we saw that more today. But Australia is going to be a bigger test. And they, one of our former national team coaches, Tony Gustafsson, is the head coach there and understands, obviously a lot of our style and a lot of our players. And so there's other players on the Australian team who are familiar with most of our players who have played in the NWSL. And so I do think that it's going to be a really difficult matchup. We can't go into any of these games thinking that we're automatically going to win. So the players do know that there needs to be more. There needs to be more confidence on the ball. There needs to be a willingness to want to succeed. There needs to be a better mentality and that winning mentality and focus that we've seen the past 6 months that I don't know if we've seen that the past 2 games.
The way that qualifying works, obviously, it's not really do or die against Australia. I'm just wondering how that might affect the team selection and how you would approach this game.
I would approach this game wanting to win and setting a tone moving on into the next rounds. You want to play your team that will continue to play through the next rounds, depending on any kind of niggles that some players have. But it is important to keep that squad together and build that consistency going into the games that, you must win. And so, yes, you do have to worry about resting maybe some of the older players who don't necessarily, play 90 minutes as often as they used to. So that obviously has to be, taken care of, but that's more so into the attack and the forward line. But I do think that defensively, and in that number 6 role, we really need to see that consistency in the U.S. moving into the rounds that truly matter.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.